tonight. My name's Kate Abdo. I'm a host for Fox Sports. First and foremost, though, I consider myself, as I'm sure...
Quiet!
Thank you, Lennox.
Here we go.
Lennox Lewis said that.
Let me start again. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We really appreciate you coming. We appreciate you turning out. We hope it'll be a fun evening for you. I work for Fox Sports. I'm a host there, but I'm also a big boxing fan, so I'm sure that all of you guys are just as excited as I am to see Fox and ESPN coming together to make this possible, to make a production this big possible, and to make it possible for the best to fight the best, which is ultimately what we all want. I got a whole team here with me of broadcasters, a real mix of Fox and ESPN, and the idea of tonight is just to let them share their thoughts with you, have you guys ask them some questions about the fight as well, so we can all benefit from their wisdom. A couple of people standing next to me that we didn't manage to get seats for, and I'm very sorry about that. Since this is such a historic partnership between Fox and ESPN and PBC and Top Rank, we just want to start the evening with a few remarks from executives from both of those companies. So if we can welcome in the EVP and Head of Programming and Scheduling of Fox Sports, Bill Wanger, and the VP of Programming at ESPN, Matt Kenny. You guys both have mics, yeah? Bill, just start by talking to us a little bit about this partnership, about how it came to be, how it came together, and how both networks have worked together to promote the fight.
Yeah, well, first of all, welcome to the biggest heavyweight fight in the last decade. This is going to be awesome. The fight really came together when the fighters signed a contract, and Fury was with Top Rank, and Wilder, of course, was with PBC, and that married ESPN and Fox together. And our four respective business units came together and created a plan. And then Kenny and I were the ones charged to execute it. And we're really sharing resources and talent and promotion and programming. And it's been an unprecedented partnership. It's been fantastic.
Matt, tell us a little bit, if you would, about Fight Week programming. I know that you guys have had these guys working non-stop, literally, and then what we're going to expect on Saturday night when it comes to fight night as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kate. Hey, everyone. I mean, we obviously couldn't be more excited about where we are today, the event that we're going to have on Saturday night. I think the best way to describe what fans can expect is, if you look on stage here, the impressive collection of talent and personalities, incredibly gifted professionals and folks who cover the biggest events. And as companies, both ESPN and Fox Sports have a long decorated history of covering the very biggest and best sports out there. And for these companies to come together, and this talent to come together, I think at the end of the day, the fans are going to win. In terms of what everyone could expect on Saturday, a few weeks ago, we had a talent summit in Burbank. And this was the first time where the talent got together and it was a chance for them to engage and discuss and start to build some chemistry. I started that call as half of the equation in terms of an executive interested in how this is going to go. I left that call incredibly inspired, excited, and as a fan, fired up for what this group is going to be able to bring forth in terms of storytelling and covering the fight. And fans are going to be in for a real treat on Saturday night.
Absolutely. And so far, so good. Would we do it again?
I certainly hope so.
Great. Bill, Matt, thank you very much. Appreciate
Kate.
you being here. Listen, I already mentioned the broadcast team that we've assembled for this one. I'm not going to run through all of their accolades because with such a talented team, it would take us such a long time, but you're all part of the boxing family, and I know you know who all of them are. Lennox, I think it makes sense to start with you as the last undisputed champion. We're just 2 days away now from fight night. Talk me through the mindset of the fighter at this point in time. How are they preparing? Are they sleeping? How are the nerves? What can disrupt them at this point in time?
I don't think anything can disrupt them. I think they're just ready to fight. They've been doing a lot of press for the last couple of days. I think they're bored of it now. They just want to get in the ring and get it done. So as far as both of them are concerned, they're probably just trying to get some time by themselves so they can get mentally prepared and physical rest. And they're looking forward to Saturday night where they can prove who the best heavyweight on the planet is.
Andre, you ended your career with a very famous rematch. How does the mindset differ going into a rematch, and especially when you're going into a rematch where the opponent says, I'm going to come at you totally differently this time?
They always say that until the bell rings.
I think rematches are about takeaways and adjustments. Both fighters have to be honest with themselves, even if it's just privately, within themselves about what they did well and then obviously what they did wrong. And if they didn't do anything wrong, they would have won the fight going away. So clearly both guys had something to go back and mull over and try to fix and tinker with. But did they both do that? That's the question. You got to be honest. Okay, he kept hitting me with this punch, or why did I get hit with this? And man, that dude was stronger than I thought he was going to be, or man, he hit harder than. Whatever the takeaway is, you got to be honest about the takeaway. You take that to your team, you make the adjustments, and then obviously the hard work is Saturday night where you have to execute.
Tim, you had not one but two rematches. Did you find it psychologically any more stressful going into it? I hadn't finished.
Wait, no. I'm sorry, Kate.
Boy, fired up.
Go ahead.
All right, Kate, go ahead. And I'm sorry. That's the second time I'd have done that. Finish your
I've
Do
experienced
it
it
like
for 2
Family
years.
Feud. You don't get the rest. Do it like Family Feud. You don't get the rest.
I was just wondering whether you find it more stressful psychologically, already knowing just how good the opponent is. You've already experienced that with Manny Pacquiao, obviously.
You know how fast he is, how strong he is. You know his will. They always say that once you go 12 rounds with a fighter, you know him just as well as his mother does. And I truly believe in that. I think rematches are tricky psychologically because, especially this fight, because of the somewhat controversy draw. A lot of Fury felt that he won the fight. Wilder felt that he won the fight. And coming in this fight now, I think that Fury's feeling that he needs a knockout in order to win, And Fury, to me, is not a knockout artist. But, hey, I want to see if he can get it done. If he can, great. If he doesn't, then it is what it is. But with having that mindset, he kind of seems like he's kind of changing his whole way of being. That's not the Fury that I know. But it's different, and I felt that way when I was fighting against Manny Pacquiao. I felt that the second time around I had to knock him out because of the controversy in the beginning, and it kind of threw me off my game. So once I got in there, I couldn't knock out Pacquiao. What was left of me, Pacquiao destroyed. So I just think psychologically it does have a big effect on you and how you approach the second time. You need to come in a rematch with a clear mind. Take what you learned from the first fight and then apply it, but come in there with a clear mind. So that's advice for anybody that's doing rematches.
Got you. Shawn, I know you and I have both been really personally excited about seeing Fox and ESPN come together like this. Just talk to me, paint the big picture for me about the significance of this fight for boxing as a whole and for the heavyweight division specifically.
Absolutely. I love telling this story. Here in America, boxing isn't what football, NFL is. It's not the NBA. It's not even MLB out here. And we have a long way to go, I think, in terms of where we want to get to in terms of being up there with those guys. I've even had people ask me, I tell them I'm a boxer, I say, oh, are you a heavyweight? What? That's what people know. When they connect boxing, they connect it to the heavyweight division. And I think that right now, this fight being in Las Vegas, in America, is humongous for America, first and foremost. But then you have the number 1 and the number 2 guy in the world. All eyes are on boxing on Saturday night, and I love it. I think this fight is going to take boxing to a whole nother level in the world and definitely in America.
That's what's so interesting, right, Lennox? Because this is the fight between the guys that we consider number 1 and number 2 in the division, but we have to be honest that 3 of the belts are across the pond. Do you see this as the fight that defines who is the man in the division, despite those belts being elsewhere?
100%. These are the 2 top guys right now. They proved it in the first fight, and this is why they're having the second fight. And, everybody wants to see who the winner is out of these 2. And they've both got unusual styles. You got the boxer, which is out there. He boxes from the left hand. He goes to the southpaw. He moves well, and is hard to hit. He's elusive to a certain degree. And then you got Deontay, which is a great power puncher. And, everybody's worried about his right hand, but he's got other attributes as well that he wants to let people know, which makes for an unbelievable fight. So for a fight like this, it's hard to pick because, both of them have the strength and the talent to win. So it's really who really comes out with the best game plan.
Joe, you were bang in the middle of everything yesterday, right in between Tyson Fury and Deontay
I'm
Wilder.
here, Kate. I
You
survived.
Yep, you made it through.
Even with poor judgment.
It is, of course, the biggest heavyweight fight that we have seen in decades, and you get to be the voice that brings that to the nation. Is it a marquee moment for you personally in your career?
Me personally, I think your question is well founded in just how much this group wants to serve the fan, of how significant that is. And that's been apparent since we all got together in LA and had an incredible summit and a boxing conversation that has now gone on to a text thread that goes throughout every single day and in the production office here, and meals and fun. Kate, is there a demarcation I didn't know about where you're humbled by the fact that these are all the championship belts over here and then it's just the slappy media guys over here? I feel like there's a
I didn't make the
imaginary
seating plan.
border here. But to that point of how special it is for all of us, and I feel like it's a Friday Night Fight reunion over here, Brian. I'm having flashbacks to 2001. I am thrilled that what we have here, and I see so many writers, and Dan and Lance and Coppinger and so many familiar faces in the endemic media of boxing, that we're not talking about the business of boxing. To the champ's point, we're talking about the boxing of boxing, that the result matters, that there's intrigue with the fighters going up against each other, the strategy, the training camps. That is greatly significant. And there's been some common sense leadership from Fox and ESPN, from the PBC and Top Rank, that has given us this, that no longer is the story everything but outside the ropes. It's inside the ropes that people are so wildly intrigued to. So all we want to do, and I'm so blessed that I've got these two guys with me here ringside of Lennox Lewis, who it's about as relatable of a matchup as could be, because undisputed, unified, rematches in the heavyweight division, rematch coming off a controversial draw. This will only be the third time in the history of sport that happens. You were the most recent against Evander Holyfield. And then, of course, the undefeated pound-for-pound recent champ. That we can lean on them to document. Everybody upstairs in the studio can deliver great analysis and stories. But all this group cares about is serving the fan. And we are given an opportunity with a tremendous fight to do that and talk the sport of boxing with great relevance to the outcome.
We all sat through hours of fighter meetings today and had the privilege to sit with them and hear them talk to us firsthand about where they're at right now. Was there anything that stood out to you about their mindset, particularly Tyson and Deontay, from the meetings that we had today?
I'm sorry, were you talking about to me?
Yes.
Okay. With their mindset of the production meeting?
Yeah.
I feel like we've all spent so much time with them, Kate, and through the promotion here, and people have gone to camp and been embedded in camp. We've had one-on-one interviews. We've had roundtables. And obviously the tone changed about midweek here as we've gotten to this boiling point of coming to the 72-hour and 48-hour point. But I think both these guys are so well aware of where they are at this marker in their careers. They understand how much is on the line and how much, and this is what I really got out of today, how much they are now defining each other, and how much they're, even though we saw what we saw yesterday at the news conference, there's an appreciation of the dance partner, and that it took both of them to bring it to this level, for networks to come together, for promoters to come together, and for the American sports public. And I would even go further in saying that you're starting to sense the roar of the fire, that it's not even a sports viewing public now, it's a mainstream American deal here of where the attention is, and people feeling that there's an obligation that you have to watch this on Saturday night to find out the great reveal of who wins this showdown. I think there's an appreciation that these two guys have, that they need each other right now.
Absolutely. Brian, you're going to be working the desk on Fight Night with Max Kellerman, with Tim, with Shawn. What has you most intrigued about this fight?
Well, I think having a heavyweight champion of the world is very important to the sport. I think it really brings focus. And through the years, I was 14 years at ESPN, 12 years Friday Night Fights with Joe, with Max, worked, I think, with everybody here, eventually at various networks. And it's just difficult to get out to the public who the champ is. If you make fans work at trying to figure this out, you have a chance losing them. And this transcends the sport when you can have one person. And I agree. Look, and I've called both Anthony Joshua fights last year. I think he's solidly in the number 3 spot right now. No matter how many belts he has, he lost that emphatically, got knocked out, came back, reclaimed his belts, and he has a title now. But These guys are both unbeaten. The winner here is the heavyweight champion of the world. And it's the biggest title in sports traditionally, and it brings in mainstream fans. And it's exciting for all the reasons that we say. Even though they're 31 and 34, you get the sense they're in their physical prime. They're in their spiritual and emotional prime. They're both peaking right about now. It's a classic matchup between a guy who's a natural boxer who's been boxing out of the crib and another guy who started at the age of 19. You have a guy who has immense power, and you have another guy who inexplicably at 6'9" is a tremendous boxer. There's so many intriguing elements, but again, we're not just competing with other sports or other boxing networks. We're competing, as they say in Netflix, with sleep. You're competing with movies. You're competing with all sorts of entertainment. And I think boxing at its best is the best thing out there and the most exciting thing out there, especially at 6'7" and 6'9" for the heavyweight championship.
Amen. Bernardo, you're going to be in the ring getting that first interview, and one of the men has their hand raised on Saturday night. How are you expecting the rematch to be different?
I expect both guys to go with what they know. I think all the talk of what's going to happen really doesn't matter until they get into the ring, because the first punch will change everything. And historically, we know that fighters revert to who they are. So once that first punch is landed by either Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, that'll dictate where the fight goes. So in terms of it being different, I think the first round or two will be different. And then if it doesn't end there, they'll settle into who they are, because that's where they feel comfortable. Tyson Fury will be at his best using angles, moving, trying to stay away from that right. And Deontay Wilder will be that hunter. He knows that if he lays that right hand on you and it detonates, and I say detonate because usually you say he lands that right. No, when Deontay Wilder extends that right hand and gets that full extension and it hits somebody, it detonates like a bomb. And those guys usually don't get up. The exception being Tyson Fury. So they're both confident. They both believe that in that 12th round, they figured out what they need to do to win round 13 and moving forward. I'm sure that for Tyson, after he got up and went after Wilder, he says, okay, that's my formula to win. That's a dangerous formula. That's putting himself out there in danger. And for, Wilder, he's looking at it like, man, those last 4 rounds, it's a whole different fight than the first 8 rounds. And so if I can just continue that to be round 5, I can do my work and finish him. So I expect it to be different for moments, but I expect the same thing to be the tone of the fight, because they both cannot get away from who they are.
Andre, did Tyson convince you in the fighter meetings today that he's got the right game plan for this?
When I first heard the game plan or the new game plan or the new mindset from Tyson Fury, I didn't believe it. Then I heard a little bit more, and I heard it again, and I started to believe it a little bit more. And then we heard him today, and I think I fully believe him. If you watch the first fight, there was an invisible line in the center of that ring, and for probably about 50% of the fight, Tyson Fury toed that line and didn't allow Deontay Wilder to push him back. Now, I know that, most people think that Fury ran around the ring and boxed and was cute the whole night, but that's not necessarily true. Tyson Fury had several moments where he attacked Deontay Wilder with success. He had his best success when he attacked Deontay Wilder. So the game plan is not entirely crazy. The issue that I have is the weight gain and the bulk up. He's talking about being somewhere around 14 and a half pounds north of where he was the first fight. I don't agree with that. A 250-pound man is a big enough man to push back a guy who's 225, 223, somewhere around there. So I don't agree with the weight gain. He explained it to us today. I understand it in theory, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. But the game plan is not entirely crazy. You have a guy with an 83-inch reach, right? Is boxing him, Tyson Fury, like he did the first fight, was that really a safe thing to do? He got caught twice. He almost got knocked out in the 12th round. So there's really no safe place in a ring with a guy like Deontay Wilder. So I'm not opposed to him saying, I'm going to push the issue and be bold enough and brash enough to push a guy back who typically doesn't have to go back. I made a living out of doing that, right? So it's dangerous, and it's no man's land from being on the outside and then getting on the inside. That's the hard part. How are you going to get inside and push him back consistently and often enough where you get hit and you're able to hit him back and you're able to get in that nip and tuck kind of fight? It's not easy, but I don't necessarily disagree with it. I just disagree with the weight gain.
Well, I'm
He
a
ain't have to
different
think about
fighter.
that.
I'm a pugilist specialist, so to box Deontay would be a great fight for me because he's one-dimensional. I'd rather fight him than Tyson Fury because Tyson Fury gives you all kinds of different looks, and he would have to get me thinking a little bit more. So Deontay, I would probably go towards and try and hit him to the body because you know he would be taller than me, and I would think I would be a more of an effective body puncher against him.
I think one thing, too, we got to give Deontay Wilder credit for. We understand what his gift is, his God-given gift, his power. And it's in his right hand. I know he still has a left hand, but we know him for his right hand. But it's also the skill and the nuance that he's developed over time to set that right hand up. He's learned how to get guys in the right position at the right time and land the shot in the right spot in order to get them out of there. That's skill. This is a guy who doesn't have 30 amateur fights, 30, 35 amateur fights, went on to win a bronze medal, was the only medalist in that Olympics. And he's obviously had a small sample size as an amateur, so he's learning on the job. That's why he had he fought a lot of what we call dead men in the sport of boxing early on, trying to understand who he was as a professional fighter. He's done that. His style is established. He is improving little by little, but we got to give him credit for the skill that he does display.
Can I add on that?
You can indeed.
Most of the time we say it's the punch that we don't see is the one that hurts you. You can see a Deontay Wilder's punch coming, and it hits you on the chin, and it's lights out. You can see it coming. That's what makes him special. That's what makes him special as well.
You know, I have to jump in. We can all see that every time he throws that right hand, you know, anybody he hits around the head, he can cuss. So, you know, the power is elongated, and you're right. When it lands, it's like a bomb, the brown bomber. So, you know, always have to be careful with that right hand. But, you know, everybody's focused on his right hand, and I'm sure, you know, he's improved a lot. I've seen his improvement, and he's answered the question, in my eyes, can he take a punch? Does he have stamina? All those questions that I asked him. He's definitely answered those questions. So I'm looking forward to a great fight. And you could say right now, Deontay's a seasoned professional right now. You know, he's learned his craft. He knows what he needs to go in there and do.
You hold the mic like a rapper. You realize
Run
that?
DMC Lewis.
I got a lot of rapper friends. Sorry.
Mark, I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get to you. Listen, I know that you love to delve into the character and the mind of a fighter. What?
I'm sorry.
Velvet.
Woo! Very nice jacket, by the way. You love to get deep into the character of a fighter. I know that you first covered Deontay Wilder, was it 2014 or 2015, I think? How have you seen him evolve and change from the young man that you met back then?
Best thing I've ever seen as a reporter. A million years I've been doing this. At the end of our interview, December 2014, his kid, Naia, his daughter, got up and said, hey, you want to see me do a cartwheel? She's born with spina bifida. She had a pronounced gait. And everyone on the crew was thinking the same thing, like, honey, don't hurt yourself, please. And before we could get it out, she had scooted up on the ring apron, done the cartwheel, and nailed it. And I think about it today, I still want to cry. It was the most sublime, unplanned, genuine moment I've ever seen as a reporter covering news or sports. And if you think about it, it gave Wilder something that so few people actually have, which is a reason right off the bat to cheer for him. A year later, we walked down Times Square, and to be frank about it, no one knew who the hell he was. Here's a heavyweight champion of the world. It is the grandest title in sports. It is still, however diminished the title of the division or whatever the hell it is, other athletes judge themselves against the heavyweight champion of the world. But people in the street, tourists, didn't know who Deontay Wilder was. Are you LeBron? Who are you? And it got me thinking, here's a guy with a great story, an American champion, knocks people out. Why the hell don't people know who he is? And it forced me to think about this. It's not that the division has been without talent. It's been without rivalries. My first fight I covered here was Bo Holyfield 1, and it was great because it was the birth of a rivalry. And I think that that's what's been missing here. You get to see something, when you have a rivalry like that, when Joe was on stage yesterday with them, despite the obvious sort of tense and hilarious moments, you get to see someone more intimately. You need a partner. You need someone who can bring it out of you. You're seeing what's best about both of these guys. And you couldn't see them if they were solitary figures. And they're both, they're not archetypes, they're prototypes. There's never been a guy who fought like Deontay Wilder at this weight. And there's never been a guy who fought like Tyson Fury. And they both have extraordinary stories and monumental egos. And I mean that in the best way. You need a huge ego to fill this role, heavyweight champion of the world. So, look, I welcome, if the division has been reborn, if there was a renaissance, it started the moment that Fury got up. And it's because we have a rivalry again.
You wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback off of that. You know, even more than just having a rival, because I think there's a lot of rivals in the sport in every weight class, right? But a lot of the big fights aren't getting made. What I respect about both of these guys the most is the spirit in which they possess. They possess the same spirit of the fighters, the heavyweights, who went before them and who laid the bricks on the path that they're now walking on. That willingness to risk it all. We say those things, but they're really risking it all. And now some may say they're making tens of millions of dollars, so what are they really risking? Well, you got two prideful men who have countries on their backs. They're risking embarrassment. They're risking their pay scale because if they lose, they're not making what they're going to make in the rematch. They're risking their legacy, bragging rights, reputation, all of those things. And whether we admit it or not as fighters, they're processing all of that this week. They're managing fears. They're managing doubts. They're reminding themselves of the work they put in and why they belong on this stage. They can have rivals, but if they're not willing to toe the line and go to their team and demand that certain fights are made, then we won't have rivals that actually fight each other to create rivalries. So we not only had one great fight, we're getting ready to have another one Saturday night.
Absolutely. This is why this fight feels like it's such a blessing to boxing right now. I'm going to open up the floor to you guys so that you guys can get your questions in. Do we have microphones? Can anybody tell me? We do? Wonderful. So if you guys...
Hey, guys, thanks for taking time to answer our questions and address these topics. Andre, I specifically want to ask the question you just raised. Why aren't more boxers demanding that these fights be made cross promotion? As you talked about, you're giving these guys credit for kind of doing this and making sure the fans get to see this fight. Why aren't more boxers doing that? Any of you guys can.
I don't have an absolute answer, but to be able to face the other baddest man in your division, to be willing to go rattle that cage, it can be scary business. It's not an easy thing to do. You gotta face your nerve. You gotta face your fears, because when you do something like that, you're on a stage in front of the whole world. You take your shirt off, you got 10 or 8 ounce gloves, depending on what weight class you're in, and you go fight another man and try to back up all the talk that you've talked in front of the whole world and all of you guys. And if you lay an egg, you guys are gonna write about it. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and I don't think there's a lot of guys who wanna do that. They wanna be Money Mayweather, but they don't want to go through the pretty boy Floyd Mayweather stage where you're grinding and nobody's watching, and you're grinding and nobody's watching, and you're telling the world how great you are, nobody's listening, but you're facing the best to continue to amass a resume and a reputation where you ultimately get that top spot and you can prove it on the biggest stage. Guys don't want to go through that stage. They want to sidestep the pretty boy Floyd stage. They want to sidestep all the dark days when nobody's watching and listening, and they want to get straight to the money and the jewelry. So that looks good on the surface, but if you scratch a little bit, you see that there's some chinks in that armor.
It's a huge risk. And you also potentially, look, you got to face the fear of, will I lose? But you also have to face the idea that you may be bucking your own promoter. and you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, or do you? So you have to come out. I think for most fighters to make something like this happen, you have to come out and say, I want this. You have to come out publicly, and that's a very lonely place to be.
Just to add on that, you know, both of these heavyweights wanted each other from day one. Nobody wanted to sidestep each other. You know, Deontay came over to England. You know, he was searching for a great fight. Nobody wanted to fight him. Tyson Fury answered the call and came over to America and answered the call. So, you know, a good job for both of them. And this is what we need from great fighters. That they don't want to sit back and take no easy fights. They want to fight the very best and prove that they're the best. Very important.
Next question.
Lennox, Shawn, FightHype.com. Lennox, you know a thing or two, obviously, about landing that right hand, the bazooka right hand you had. What does Deontay have to do right here, Lennox, right up front?
Yeah. What does Deontay have to do in this fight?
That he didn't do the first time to actually get the knockout.
You know, be more accurate with his punches, start the game off a little better. I think both fighters know each other right now, so they don't really have to waste time and say, oh, I need to figure you out. They know each other already. They've watched countless tapes on each other. What they needed to do is actually, you know, go back and really train and say, what do I want to do in this fight? What can I do more of? What mistakes did I make in the first fight? What don't I have to do in the second fight? So, and it really comes down to, you know, what plans they have for this fight. If they have a game and a B game, and what works for them. And I think corners matter as well. You know, with the information that's given to each fighter when they go out there for each round is very important. So I'll be watching and listening to what they'll be saying.
For Deontay, jab. Jab. So Mark Breland says, what JD says, jab, you're close to that right eye, jab. Also, it creates your distance, too.
It's what sports science says, too, because the sports science that Andre Ward meticulously researched.
Dr. Andre Ward.
When Deontay lands that left hand first, he lands at a double-digit increase in accuracy behind that. So it's one of the punches that he rarely uses. It's worked for him so far because he has that eraser on the right hand, but after 12 rounds with Tyson Fury, who was hard to find in that first fight, I mean, he'd be well served to land that left, especially, you know, taking into account that the right eye's been cut, 47 stitches, put that to the test. So, you know, Mark Breland, the whole team is aware that the jab is going to be a key for this fight.
Go ahead.
Front guys. Once again, I want to thank you for your time. Marcus Hayes, Fight Hub TV. Gentlemen, it was mentioned earlier by Andre Ward about managing your fears as a fighter. I think all of us regular folk in the room would like to know exactly what are the processes that you go through in order to manage the fears, because there has to be some sort of real fear in getting in the ring and getting down for a championship bout.
Who was that
This is for all the champions, if anybody wants to answer.
All right, let me. When you say managing your fear, you know, for me, my fear was losing and not being able to do what I do best. You know, going in there and performing the best. I guess from how I managed my fear was just making sure that I was properly prepared, making sure I was in great shape, making sure I was working on the things I needed to work on to perfect them. You know, example, my jab. Working on my jab and making sure that it was the best out there, that it was going to do the job that I needed it to do for me.
For me, I believe that fear is something that is, it starts with your mentality. It starts with how you think. Then it moves into how you feel. If you allow it to, it'll determine the way you walk. It'll determine the way you talk. It'll determine everything you do. For me, I've always put fear in the back of my mind. I've always denied fear. I've always said, nah, that ain't true. No, I can do it. I've always talked to myself in a very positive way so that anything that is negative or anything that could be to someone else a fear, anything like that, I've always played almost a mind game with myself to keep myself safe, to keep my emotions intact, to keep my physical intact, and to make sure that I always went out and fought the way that I could fight and do the things that I know in my heart that I can do. I believe in Deontay Wilder and in Tyson Fury. There's very little fear at this point in both of their hearts and in both of their minds. Both of them believe that they're going to walk out of that ring Saturday night victorious. Both of them believe that they're going to knock one another out. There's not very much fear getting in the ring on Saturday night, and we are all in for a treat.
Look at Timmy's game face, man.
What?
Think about the fear, man. You
Come on, Desert Storm.
locked into a trance.
How did you deal with fear?
I was always scared as hell, man.
He said, I'm still dealing with it.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie, I was always scared as hell. I mean,
Timmy locked
honestly,
in,
I
man.
think that once you understand fear, it's a natural mechanism that God has given us. Once you understand that, I think you're able to deal with it. I just know that, being nervous is a good thing. The more relaxed you are, the better you're gonna be. That's it. And, there's things that creep into your head while you in the hotel room, and you just gotta just tell it, no, that's not what's gonna happen. And I think that the harder that you work in the gym, that kind of takes care of this fear as well. And that's the reason why I work so hard in the gym, so that way I didn't doubt myself. That way I didn't say, oh, why didn't I run that extra mile when I'm in the ring and I'm in a tough spot? I know that I did enough. I know that it's in me. I know that I'm meant to be in this position. So that's how I dealt with it. But I ain't gonna lie, I was always scared as hell.
I think everyone out there right now, if Tyson Fury said, oh yeah, I'm nervous as hell, y'all would all think that he's not ready for the fight. Being nervous is not a problem. It's all about how you manage it. And I think that everyone up here with the champions, we've been able to manage our emotions and our pride. We've been able to manage our confidence. We've been able to manage our family lives in comparison to our professional lives. And we've all been able to make it up here right now because we understood how to handle our fears. Even if we're talking about the champions of television, the champions of reporting, you guys have all been able to manage everything you've come up against, which is why you're up here right now. And those guys are going to do that on Saturday night.
I'll do it like Tim. I'm going to go at it head first.
Huh? What happened?
Bernardo throwing shots.
This is
Listen, guys, we want to say we really appreciate you turning out for this. We do understand that it's not just, Fox, ESPN, PBC, Top Rank that make an event like this as big as it is. It's all of you guys out there who are part of the boxing community and family as well who turn out for us. So we do appreciate you. We hope you've enjoyed the guys speaking. They are available to you kind of offside as well if you want to try and grab them and get a few extra words from them as well. They'll be here for a minute more. And I'm told that the bar is open. Please don't go crazy, but enjoy yourself.
This is Blue from Blue Blood Sports TV. All you guys have been in big fights in your career. Timothy Bradley's been in a big fight with Manny Pacquiao. Shawn, you've been in just your last fight with Errol Spence. Andre Ward was just in a big fight with Sergey Kovalev, Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson.
Sorry, bro. Hang on a second. We're not hearing you. You can just slow down a little bit.
I said that all you guys have been in huge fights in your career. This is a huge fight. Timothy Bradley, you've been in a big fight with Manny Pacquiao. Shawn, you was just in a big fight with Errol Spence. Andre was in a big fight with Sergey, and Lennox obviously with Mike Tyson. Where do you guys rate the buzz and the promotion for this fight, and what does this do for the sport of boxing?
I think it's big right now. I appreciate everything that's happened up to this point. I go everywhere by myself. I just do my own thing. Nobody bothers me. But whenever I walk into someone at a grocery store, I've been at Walgreens. I mean, just little places. People that don't recognize me, but they just stir up conversation, and they find out that I'm a boxer. I always ask. I've asked, hey, have you heard about the fight this weekend? Everyone's heard about the fight this weekend. And I think that we collectively, PBC, Top Rank, ESPN, Fox, everyone involved with the promotion has done a fantastic job. I think the buzz is perfect for this fight. I think what they did yesterday, I personally, I was like, oh, don't go that far, was perfect for what they were able to do to make that last push for pay-per-view and for this fight to be as big as it can be. I think right now it's the best fight that could be made in boxing, and I'm happy about it.
And I look at it like it's today is today. Tomorrow is even bigger, and Saturday is even bigger. So every day it's growing bigger and bigger, and the buzz is definitely here, and people are excited about it.
It's your show. Are we good?
We're good.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Have a good night.
Thank you.